Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. We're a bunch of mega fans giving you the news, discussion, and of course, a whole lot of opinions about Brandon's works and the Cosmere. I'm Eric, and joining me is Ian.
Hey, I'm Weiry Writer.
Also joining us, who tried to screw up the intro, but I edited it out, is Evgeni.
Well, I mean, you could argue that I did screw up the intro and we had to do another take. So, mission successful.
Great. Well,
I am Argent.
Welcome. And also, someone who likes flowers just a bit is Jess. Hey, what's up?
Hi, I'm Lady Lameness.
And I'm Chaos. And today, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the words of Brandon from our interview with Brandon. Nice. But
almost none of us were on.
Oh, that's true. That is true. None of us were on.
I think some of us were spiritually on.
I don't like
almost.
How that sounds. I was in the planning meetings, good sir. I was in a lot of them.
Evgeni was in the episode.
Yeah, no, I know. Hey, David's internet almost died, and Evgeni and I needed to draw straws because Evgeni was going to be on it.
Yeah, true. I was ready. We rolled. We had a dice roll off.
We did.
To see. In fact, I can probably scroll up to the results. That's probably
we don't need to do
far.
that. We're going to talk about the news. So
no, but the people need to know how badly we did.
Oh, we did roll really terribly. That is true. That is actually funny. I think I got a 2 and you got a 3. I think
both of them were certainly single-digit rolls.
They were real low
on a D20.
They were not more than 5. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think it was like a 3 and a 5 or something like that. I don't know where it is. I'm not going to find it.
We are at last in initiative order for sure. But we do have actual news, critical news, because by the time this episode is out, at least backers to the Words of Radiance Leatherbound Kickstarter have Isles of the Emberdark right now, July 1st. Just crazy. Yeah, I thought that would be some months later, but it's right now. So won't have to think about what episodes we're going to do. We're going to have a reactions episode later this month. So don't worry about that. So that's exciting.
Brendan did a Beyonce and just dropped the book in our lap 2 weeks beforehand.
Yes. You attempted to read a non-Brandon book, and that's when Brandon
Which we picked it up the same day.
That was your mistake. So yeah, that's probably the most exciting bit of news.
That's definitely the most exciting bit of news.
Yes.
Less newsy, but still relevant. The Cosmere RPG, or the Stormlight setting, is going to be arriving digitally to backers in just about 2 weeks from the airing of this episode, July 23rd, unless we are forced to reschedule for whatever reason, in which case, whoever edits this, please do
it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Do like a Google voice over me with the correct date.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so that will also be coming out.
It's very pretty. It's very pretty.
It is very pretty.
The
art is
the
great.
whole Brotherwise team did a phenomenal job.
Yes.
Yep.
That is absolutely true. Well, I want to do a number of episodes in it.
They're seconded. We're doing a bunch of episodes on that.
Well, we'll see how many we can convince Eric to do.
Hey, look, if people make an outline and are like, hey, let's do an episode, I'm like, great, cool. I don't have to think about the episode. We got new content, which means we get to delay doing a Yasna debate episode, which, I mean, we kind of had half of that in the last WoB episode. Or
anything we can do to postpone having to do the work.
To do the tough Wind and Truth episodes. Yeah. So we got Emberdark, we got the RPG, so we'll see you in 2026 for Wind and Truth content. No, that's the joke. We'll have some Wind and Truth stuff.
I do want to show something off before we go into the episodes. I want to show you one of my balls.
Great.
I went to the store and bought these buzz balls that are little cocktails in mostly spherical containers that I've never tried before.
They do have a cutout, so they like a sphere, so they can lay down.
Yes, yes. Although now that I've opened this one, I don't want to roll it.
No, please don't. Yeah, get it all over the microphone. That'll help your quality.
Well, I think so. I think that will give my voice kind of a smooth, chocolatey texture. And also, since this is a chalk tease, my voice will be very teasing.
God. Okay. Cool.
Okay, moving on.
Okay, let's get on to the episode now. It's not like we have 17 pages of WoBs to do, and our average is like 7 or 8. Okay. But okay. Let's pad that time.
If you work for BuzzBalls, contact me for a sponsorship because this is delicious.
Yeah, cool. I like relevant product placement if it matters. Like Hank Green sponsored us.
That's what relevant means, Eric.
Yeah. Like if Dr. Pepper wants to sponsor this show, I'm saying yes. I'm overruling all the rest of you guys. Yeah, in a snap.
Great.
Don't worry.
So BuzzBalls and Dr. Pepper.
Yeah,
baby.
Yeah. And so when we're crafting questions for Brandon, our goal, obviously, if you've been in the fandom for a long time, we have hyper-specific questions that we will get some answers to. And so we want a mix of that, but also, getting Brandon to blab about some things. And so we wanted a good question to kind of start with, what he thought about Wind and Truth. And when we were planning this, the Winter is Coming interview hadn't come out. So we had to change it a little bit, but
Winter was still on the way.
Yes. So Ian, why don't you start us off? And guys, we are going to be paraphrasing Brandon talking for a very long time because this is like 35 minutes of the episode and we don't have time to go through that. So we're going to go through some highlights. Okay.
I did scroll through the 17-page document, by the way.
Yeah.
The first half is almost exclusively questions that are a page each.
Paleo makes this nice thing to have the WoBs be on screen to make editing nicer. And I should put what the 10-minute WoB of the big talk. It looks very silly. It's very funny looking. So I'll fix that in the edit, but I'll also show you what that app
was in chat if you are a 2-point font enjoyer.
Yeah. So anyway, Ian, why don't you get us started?
Okay, so Kameth kicked us off. Though the gap between Rhythm of War and In Truth had been the longest gap of Stormlight books so far, the pace of writing and revision was pretty breakneck. Considering that, we wanted to know some of your thoughts on what you are most proud of in the book. And Brandon's like, it was still breakneck. It wasn't that different. It was an extra year because he spent a year on the Year of Sand.
Wild.
I have opinions on that whole thing that I'm not going to get into.
Read our faces, chat.
He did the last draft in 2 months, guys. That's crazy.
And like the big thing is working on the foreshadowing and having it work over a span of 15 years. Obviously, there are some stumbles because, again, he wrote 5 books over the course of 15 years and like that's bound to happen. But like compared to his contemporaries, like he did a pretty good job. And that there are still things seeded in there for the back 5 that we don't know about. He's also very proud of Kaladin's arc.
Interesting.
I did like him call out kind of Kaladin's arc as Kaladin taking on different roles in different books. I thought that was an interesting way to look at it.
And like he kind of gets into like he knew like book 4 was going to be Kaladin like at his lowest point, and then book 5 was going to be him coming up on the other end of that in recovery.
Yeah.
And it's like that whole like breaking someone apart and putting them back together again like doesn't always happen. Like he did it a little bit in the Wheel of Time with Rand al'Thor, but like again that's not his series, so it's like decide to break one of his own characters and like do the entire arc. And then he likes how the pacing doesn't feel like any other book he's done. I know that is controversial for some in the community. Yes, Brendan, it is. And it's kind of like, as an artist, like it is something he is glad he has done. And he's proud of how like the themes of Stormlight Archive have developed over 15 years. It's like the piece of art stands for him.
I wouldn't necessarily like the pacing is definitely an issue for some. I think at least reading Reddit threads and YouTube comments, I think just people more have an issue with just how it's written and just the mechanics, more so than really necessarily anything else. But, you know, there's people who have issues with the 10-day structure, and so that's fair. And so he definitely tried something. But I do want Brandon to do interesting artistic things so it's not all the same thing. And we're going to get into that a little later. So I do like that attempt, whether, you know, there's just trade-offs to that, to doing a totally different structure.
For me, like, it's not necessarily the structure. Like, I think like the 10-day structure could have worked with a different sort of pacing that would have been better. Because like this was very interesting because like, oh, the weirdness was intentional.
Yeah.
Which I think it would have been better like if it had actually come across as intentional and not just weird and bad. It's just like okay, like this is weird. It's like I don't know what's going on. Like if it was just clear that like, yes, Brandon wants you to feel weird here. It's just very slow for a long time. I don't think it's doing what he wants it to do. Like I support new weird pacing. It's just he didn't quite nail it.
I think that's fair.
It's something that I've been thinking about kind of ever since that little, you know, deluge of interviews and Reddit replies and like that little thing. And it still doesn't feel to me like Brandon understands the critique that is coming from parts of the community, or like doesn't understand parts of the critique levied against the book. Kind of the idea that it's like the best that I can think of is so you take like a musical track, and if you if your, you know, record player or whatever skips every now and then, that can create a sense of unease. And it sounds like that is something that's what Brandon wanted, right? Unintentional, oh, something feels wrong, something feels off, I am unsettled, right? But if your music track is just randomly scrambled, then that's not creating a sense of unease. That is creating a sense of, this is not a musical track.
It's tough to do something like that and not have the reaction of, but this is not good though. And if you liked Wind and Truth, that's totally fine. I get YouTube comments that's like, love the book, love the pacing. And then there's other comments that's like, this is like the worst book Brandon's ever put out. Like I get those all the time. So
it's not the worst book he's ever put out. That's Snapshot.
Hey, we'll get to talk about that in a Tailored Realities episode, Ian.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
The original?
The original was okay.
Snapshot's still worse than the original. The original was like, okay, it's just the ending doesn't work for me.
Oh yeah, you did hate it.
A follow-up from K-Myth. But is there any specific thing in Wind and Truth that you would change if you had a little more time? And Brandon does go through a list of things here. Notably and interesting, he says that he thinks that maybe the Blackthorn Reborn would be something better, something that appears in book 6 as a mystery, with the same foreshadowing for what happened here. So that you pick up book 6 and you go, wait, Dalinar died. What is this Blackthorn thing?
That's interesting.
I'll get into that.
Yeah.
The other thing that he calls out here is maybe he would have had a better sense for that with more, like with another round of beta reads, another revision, because the Blackthorn was, he says, a pretty late addition.
It's interesting because he's like saying how beta reads spark ideas, and like having more time wouldn't have led to some changes, which that's interesting.
Yeah, he does say something, and I'm not sure if it's in this question or if he's said it before, because it's not the only time he's said it, but kind of the idea that he doesn't really think that more time would have done much to help the book, because in his mind, like that is like he revised everything that he wanted to revise, right? And so the only way for him to know that more changes are necessary is either he randomly changes his mind 6 months down the line as a thought matures or whatever, or he does another round of a beta and gets more feedback that he hasn't seen before,
or gets the same feedback,
or
Yeah.
Although he did get
there's still a
feedback.
problem here, Brandon.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
My feeling on the Blackthorn thing is that waiting and just doing it in book 6 would be worse. Because at least like here is like we have time to like prepare ourselves that like there's a mystery here. I'm like, we don't know what's going on, but like we know Blackthorn's gonna be a thing. Whereas like if it just randomly showed up in book 6, it's like, Brandon, why are you retconning this? This is bad.
Yeah.
I don't entirely disagree with you, but I think it could have been done as like a book 6 mystery. So like early in book 6, we see the Blackthorn and we go, oh, what the hell? And by the end of the book, we've resolved the what the hellness.
And actually, I will just say, I'll put it on screen, because actually the next one directly talks about that, where Brandon is saying, hey, yeah, if you saw this mysterious thing in book 6, you're like, wait, what? Then you could see the implications and what I do with it, because the question was, it's like, oh, is Blackthorn like undercutting Dalinar's death? And Brandon thinks is like, Blackthorn's not Dalinar. I have things that I want to do with him. So I can kind of see that, because then you don't have to worry about, is it undercutting it? But it would, I go back and forth. It's an interesting idea.
Yeah. Like as someone who doesn't think it undercuts Dalinar's death, like as someone like who is genuinely interested in the Blackthorn, it's because like it rounds out what's happening in this book. If it was just being set up new in book 6, like by necessity, like disconnected from this book by 10 years, it doesn't get the benefit of the work done in this book in my mind. It's just like, this is retconning something that already happened, Brandon.
I think I would have liked to have my cake and eat it too.
As one does.
As which I think is the only sensible way to feel about cake. I think my preference would be to reduce, like to not make the existence of the Blackthorn as explicit as it is in this book. So still shove it all off to a book 6 mystery, but have a thing in this one where Retribution like looks into the spiritual realm and like clocks the Blackthorn in there and goes, and we leave it at that. Kind of like, and this is going to be a bad example because it didn't work there. But kind of like in Rhythm of War, Odium looked at the contract and went, oh, there's a loophole here. Right?
Yeah, that went great.
So that one, yes, we don't like that. No questions there. But like in the period of Rhythm of War to Wind and Truth, it was interesting for the community to speculate on what that loophole could have been. It was an interesting plot point. Brandon didn't deliver well on that plot point, but like the hook did its job.
Okay. Like I would not be unhappy with that, I think. Like as long as like the forces of the fandom like brute force thing, like the theory crafting of like what did Retribution notice, like would have like greased the skids for a book 6 Blackthorn.
I think
But I'm like, I don't know. I just really like thinking about the Blackthorn. That's a really interesting concept. I'm like, I don't want to wait for that.
I think as a community member, I would really like it. I think as a reader, I wouldn't like it. Like, I would much prefer to just have it resolved in book 5 and not have this mystery drawn out that really triggers my fake out death. I hate this type thing. And it would depend on how it's portrayed, right? But
and I would
that is
want
the
it to be
first thing
clear.
that comes to mind.
Yeah. I would want it to be clear that like retribution is like there's no like resurrection plot going on. It's like, oh, there is a tool somewhere for me to use.
Yeah. But yeah, I think as a reader, I would much prefer it's just all kind of neatly finished up in a similar way to how we got it, like where there was a resolution instead of having that plot hook for the next book. But yeah, I think as an actual community member and someone who's like theory crafting, having that plot hook does allow for people to do speculation and to have that engagement with other people.
I thought Blackthorn would be definitely a controversial thing. I find Brandon's idea of if I did it this like, hey, it's in book 6 and it wasn't really in here, that definitely solves the issue that if people are uncomfortable with this idea and think, I don't really like that, then that can kind of deal with that, and then you can see what Brandon's going to do with that storyline. And so I'm interested to see that Brandon has some clear plans with that. But it does have other issues.
Or it's just kicking the problem down the road.
Well,
and
that's
people
true.
are still going to have issues with
That's
the concept of
Yeah,
Blackthorn.
Perhaps.
I'd prefer the suspense of it over a mystery, personally.
There are a lot of like moving pieces, but also pieces that move in interesting ways when we compare books 5 and 6. In book 5, Blackthorn is something that is happening like in the middle of the climax or in the falling action of the climax. And so by necessity, there are certain like pacing rules that need to be obeyed. Like you cannot spend a chapter like dealing with what's going on here, right?
Yeah.
There's also the fact that book 6 is not coming for another, call it like 6 years, 7 years or something like that. And so that's one of the things that I always come back to whenever I hear Brandon talk about like decisions that he's made in Wind and Truth that the fandom writ large doesn't usually address, is that the weight here is an important factor in the decisions that Brandon has to make, right?
Yeah.
I don't think he talked about it much in this interview, but he has talked about it elsewhere. Kind of the idea of like a dark ending and how he felt like, and how he felt like he needed to pull back a little bit because, a downer note feels one way when the next book is coming out, next year or in 2 years or in 3 years. It feels different when the next book is coming out in like 6 years or 7 years or
which I think we can talk about when we get to that.
Yeah.
We'll leave the Blackthorn, much like Brandon, to languish for the next 6 years and address some of the other things that he talks about, which is the language. He recognizes that people have perhaps rightfully identified, like he didn't think his language had drifted too far modern, even though in his mind, as the Cosmere moves closer to like modern day and the future, the language should too. But he's like, oh, maybe I misjudged that. Maybe I moved a little too quickly, a little too soon, which is interesting. Other things, I don't think we need to talk about the language. Language is kind of...
We talked about it in the last WoB episode.
Another thing that he touches on is the Yasna debate. And kind of the idea that if he had more time or if he had thought to do this, maybe he would have like brought in more of Jasnah's trauma during the debate, because he, I think, rightfully recognizes that the scene or that sequence as it is written doesn't do a good job of like showing Jasnah's internal like mental state during the debate, and so like her reactions don't make as much sense to the reader as they do to Brandon, because the reader doesn't have the context that Brandon does.
Yeah.
It's like, and this touches on like Jasnah's childhood and like things that this interaction with her Evengian are like resurfacing trauma and stuff like that.
Yeah. In my opinion, the issue is less that Brandon needed to bring out her trauma more. It's that he needed to bring it out at all. That we had any inkling that it was there.
Yes. He is not technically wrong. He should have brought it out more above sea level.
Above zero.
Above zero, yes.
This was in like the Reddit comments. And like reading that, I'm like, oh, okay. Like now I see what Brandon was going for there. It didn't work, but it like, okay. I was like, it's nice to know that like he did have some idea of what should be going on there. But it's just like, as opposed to like there were like internal like rationalizations for like why that worked more than just Brandon needed her to fail.
I have so many thoughts on this that I will not bring up here because we do not have time.
We'll do an episode sometime.
I think there is more to it than Brandon needing to just bring out this more in this one scene. And I think that is also a downfall in the whole Jasnah debate, is it's a single section really with no build-up. And it's kind of the lack of build-up as well. You can't just dump a character into a scene, give them some trauma, and then suddenly they have a downfall. And that's a really good way of doing it. Like it just doesn't really work very well if you don't have things building up to it first.
Yeah, but it works even less well when there's none of that at all, right?
Yeah. And it's like, I do get his point of like he needs to save things like for the Jasnah book. Otherwise, like he has the Venli problem, whereas like flashbacks, like the Venli flashbacks, like didn't really teach us all that much new. No. There's a balancing point he could have found beyond just not telling us anything.
I agree.
Like particularly like because Jasnah is back 5 and late back 5 at that.
Book 10.
Yeah.
If you want her to be an important character through the entire thing, like you have to give us something.
Yeah.
And it's like you can't just like give us something at the beginning and expect that to ride you out the entire series. Like you need dribs and drabs along the way.
Like we need to see her struggling more. Like we don't necessarily need to have the information from the backstory, but like to see her actually struggling in the moments leading up to it as well.
Yeah. Because I mean,
like we did get a little of that in Oathbringer. Like there's like a few like offhand references like that are very like don't tell us anything, really.
No.
Like he could have reiterated those. Like he wouldn't have told us anything more, but it would just have made it work better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope book 10's good. I don't know.
I have been thinking about this, kind of jokey comment that we've made, which is like, oh, book 10 is going to make this book retroactively better, which is a whole other thing, right? We don't want that. Yeah. That's why we are memeing on that idea. But like, even if it did, it would be kind of the thing where if it does, so it's like if book 10 has like a flashback or whatever to this scene, and we now see inside Yasna's head and like why she was the way that she was, it would feel like almost like a retcon with no like basis for, like, in other words, this book did not establish a mystery or a question that book 10 will then come and answer. This book did not establish a question or mystery. This book presented Yasna's failure kind of straightforward, right? She just looked like she was defeated by the power of Teravangian's arguments or whatever. Mm-hmm. So there's no like gap for book 10 to come back into and slither and like expand on this. Which I think is also, now that I say all of that, is also a little bit of the problem that we have with Szeth's flashbacks, and to a lesser extent, Venli's flashbacks, where, like with Kaladin and Shallan and Dalinar, there were things in their present day stories that we could then go back to their flashbacks and see how those things are being set up. So like the present day and the flashback would interact with each other in some, like Kaladin's whole TN thing, right? We needed to go back to the, like, we are not immediately presented with Kaladin's trauma around TN when we first meet him in the Way of Kings, right? But by the end of the book, we know enough from both the present and the flashbacks to like put the pieces of this puzzle together. Shallan's Matryoshka doll of a past and murder, same thing. Dalinar and Evie, same thing. And then with Szeth, and with what we are talking about here with Yasna, there is no puzzle to fit together, right? We had some pieces from Szeth's very limited viewpoints throughout the first 5 books, and then his flashbacks were kind of separate. They didn't click. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Venli and Eshonai, and I worry that the Yasna thing is going to fall in the same boat. Plenty of books to fix that, but at the moment, that's what I feel.
So this next one, David's basically asking, like, hey, if Rayse was still the villain, because we have these branching paths, well, what would this ending have been like? Because Rayse doesn't want to pick up other shards. And Brandon says, yeah, he would have done something else. And Brandon, we tried to get him to elaborate. And Brandon's like, you guys theorize on it. But basically, Brandon was saying how Teravangian and Way of Kings Prime didn't work. And so the option to keep Rayse around was there in case Teravangian didn't grow the way he wanted to. And so Brandon quickly realized in Oathbringer and Rhythm of War that Odium got pretty thwacked, his ideology. Dalinar rejected him, and Kaladin rejected him in Rhythm of War. So that's why he went with Teravangian. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. I have no ideas on what else. Like, I'm not the New York Times bestselling author. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, hard to fit the Night of Sorrows stuff in there. So I don't know exactly what that would be, but okay.
Yeah.
I mean, if I were to guess, some version of Rayse like freeing himself from the Rosharan system and somehow like reigning unchecked, similarly to how the Retribution is now. I don't know how, but
cool. Great. We can move on. All right, Jess.
So the next question was from Kameth, and it's a lot of people were disappointed when Cultivation just yeeted herself off Roshar and fled. Is what happened what she expected to happen, or was this her plan C, her plan F, her plan Z? How many layers were there? So Brandon said that Cultivation has more plans, and that if Cultivation was capable of handling Odium, then we wouldn't have a book series.
Fair point.
I hate it, but it's true.
it's very true.
Yeah.
It's very true. And Brandon was saying that don't count cultivation out entirely. She's part of the problem, not the solution. And there's some good reasons that some members of the Heralds did not get along with her. Taln tried to kill her.
Oh, yeah.
He did not succeed.
Yeah.
But Brandon was saying that he runs into the problem when he's writing books where he wants viewpoint characters to be solving the problems, not being the people who can't grasp and understand them. So he needed cultivation to be someone who's part of the solution, but also part of the problem.
That makes sense.
I find this very interesting. I wish at least one thing she tried in this book actually succeeded. Like,
she had her success with, look, she successfully made every single person she was in contact with become some version of powerful or useful. And that includes Dalinar, and that includes Lift, and that includes Taravangian. They didn't do what she wanted them to do necessarily.
I just wish she wasn't as clowned on in this book.
Yeah.
It really was disappointing when she just disappeared at the end. Like, that made me dislike her a lot more.
Because it's kind of like, it just feels like a tonal shift with her compared to how she's been the previous 4 books.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So either like she needed to be more competent here, or she needed to be less competent in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or better,
I get what
both.
I get what Brandon's saying about she can't be too powerful to be able to defeat Rayse herself, but it really does feel like how her power level was decreased in this book compared to the past, like what you're saying, Ian. Like, she really doesn't feel quite the same.
Yeah, I think the only like victory that she gets in this book is a little bit of a moral victory, or maybe a philosophical victory, in that Taravangian was not actually willing to sacrifice Kharbranth like he presented himself to her.
To an extent, but she doesn't know that, so it doesn't count for me.
Partial credit.
Half point to cultivation for that one. Yeah.
I do feel that. And I just cannot get over the fact that a 10,000-year-old dragon just got completely dunked on by an old man who's half smart half the time.
Well, he doesn't have that problem in this book.
I mean, he kind of decides to have that problem, though, in the last book where he chooses to give.
Well, that's
true. But just the fact, like the fact that you're a 10,000-year-old dragon, and then the new hire just immediately demolishes you doesn't feel good.
Well,
yeah, but when you're the new hire, it does.
Yeah, I guess.
Cultivation, maybe you need to stop hiding and maybe do some things, and then you won't have the new hire wreck you. I mean, you could have sharpened your skills, Just saying.
And I do think there was a way for her to be more involved, but it still be the mortals that are solving the problem.
Surely she is going to come back in the back 5 with the part of the greater war of the Cosmere. I think that's a promise. And in front 5, we can't deal with too much cultivation stuff. Surely.
But doesn't the back 5 have the same inherent problems in that you still want the mortals to be solving the problems?
Yeah. We'll kill the cultivation vessel and we'll get a new cultivation vessel. It'll be fine.
You would kill Corvelium of Ashe, who brings the dews at dawn. How dare you?
I mean, is she really doing a lot right now?
No, not really.
What dues is she bringing?
Just saying.
She who yeets the dues.
She'll be with the Sharda Coalition. That Valor will be there. Like it'll be great. It'll be great, baby.
This next one is getting into the big talk that Brandon has foreshadowed in speeches and interviews for years at this point, and like checking, like, was that the gloves off moment after Lost Metal? Like, do you still need to do the big talk? And so we get the big talk here. I'm going to make it a small talk because it's really long and we have to get through this.
I do think it would be funny to read the whole thing and then just in editing do it like a 5x.
That would actually be kind of funny. But
ooh, do I?
I'll be totally honest. I am kind of okay with that.
Yes, I kind of want to do it.
Okay, let's do it.
This book, I need to take a break.
Do you want to take a breath?
I was like, there's a whole other page to this.
I know. I'm having so much fun. Though.
Excellent. Good. This is great. This is a great bit.
Hysterical.
It'll let it down. It'll be great.
Okay, you have to keep this bit in and then speed me back up again.
Okay, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe stupid. So that's what the conversation is. I did that intentionally, and I'll see if the right idea.
Hey, this bit was great. I'll see how I edit it. That'll be fun. Brandon took over 10 minutes to do that, and it took you 7. And that's a pre-edited version.
I win! I beat Brandon.
So I
so hot and sweaty right now. I did not care about how accurate I was.
Great. I don't even know if I should cut you stumbling any words, or if I just should place.
I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no one's gonna know.
Excellent.
We do have to do another take though, because I think you had too much emotion, and Brandon just does not go that high.
No,
yeah,
no.
So
we're
3 notches down.
No, absolutely not.
Also, someone else needs to summarize that.
No. We're not. Yeah. So I find this very interesting all around. Like, I love Brandon talking about this meta stuff, and I do like that he's thinking, yeah, maybe what I'm doing is stupid a little bit. Like, that's immensely interesting to me. I mean, there definitely are people who are like, I don't know if I want to read more Sanderson. I see those YouTube comments, guys. That's just fine.
Unfortunately, this is a significant part of my life, and all of my friends are part of this fandom, so I'm kind of stuck.
You're stuck here.
The sunk cost is real.
We're all stuck here.
Yeah.
We do still like the books, guys.
Yeah.
But
I like significant portions of Wind and Truth.
Yeah.
There's just other portions I don't.
Like, I think the ending's really good, but I do think Brandon does have a point. It's different if you have Infinity War and you have Endgame the next year versus Endgame 10 years later. Like, that's, these are very different things. You can have a really bad ending and be like, yeah, that was bad, but, we're going to get the next thing. Of course, they're going to fix the problem in the next movie, in the next book here. And so I can see why he needed to, have it chill a little bit, but I also would love for it to have been darker, personally.
Yeah. And it's
remember when people first started saying that the ending was dark, and it was just like that emote of the I don't understand. What are you talking about? Because in my mind, that's not a dark ending at all.
Yeah, it's like, we can talk about this a little bit because Brandon talks about changing this, but the beta read was darker because the publishers freaked out and he had to pull back. It was better. The darkness was good.
We had our literal sun going on the seer here. It's like, hey, there's light, guys. Don't worry, there is some. I promise.
And it is my understanding, by the way, that the sunlight ends at the border.
Literally the border.
It is an Aesir shaped beam of light.
I'll put on screen the book 6 Roshar map where it's just all black except to see and shattered plains.
And Urithier.
Easy. And Urithier, yes.
No, Shattered Plains is rain. It's just like independently ruled.
Oh,
it doesn't get the sun.
We don't know that.
Oh,
because
that was
because of the relative timings of the epilogues.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I love the idea of post-apocalyptic Roshar. That's a great idea. I think even people who don't like the book are. I think that sounds cool. It's just I think more the technical aspects of the book.
Yeah.
Like the end
also,
point is cool.
I do need to address the bald-faced lie that's in here.
Okay,
It's like the bald-faced lie of like he's never like not given us like something he promised. Which like little book series called Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians, where he was very consistent for years at like, oh yeah, there's 5 books. And then you get to the end of the 5th book and it's like, surprise cliffhanger, there's another book.
Okay, yeah.
Well,
which is
but it's
basically
5 books in the Alcatraz series.
Yes. It's like, yeah, you always said Alcatraz was going to write 5 books and this one's written by Bastille. Same difference, Brandon. It's like, this is substantially the same thing.
Sure.
I thought you were going to go down the route of the lost metal being about, the lost metal.
I mean,
I've purged the lost metal from my memory.
It was lost. Like, that's fact. They could have.
Yeah, it was
I
lost
couldn't find
from the book.
Sorry if you guys lost. If you guys liked Lost Metal, we're having fun. We're having fun.
Sorry if you guys lost the love of the metal.
Yeah.
I have a question about this.
Yeah.
How would you feel? So, like, kind of the idea of book 5 ends on a downer ending, and the rest of the series is post-apocalyptic Roshar and the Final Fantasy VI thing. How would you feel if book 4 ended, or book 3 even ended this way, and we were getting another? And like, so like if the pacing of the books was not interrupted, or I guess a different way of asking this question is, what if book 6 was coming out in 3 years? Does that change the way people feel about this? So in other words, if this was not marketed as the ending of the first arc of Stormlight, but it was just, it's just book 5.
Yeah, it's just a midpoint.
Yeah.
Like if it was just a midpoint, it would be different. But this was kind of billed as the end of the first 5.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And there's a little too much setup in this book.
Yeah, I definitely think that's an issue.
Ending.
Where it doesn't, people think that it didn't feel conclusive enough. I don't think I agree with that, but I can see why people are saying that.
Okay.
Dark is very marketable, though. Brandon is correct. It's just not Brandon's brand. Like, I think it's different if you had book 1. If you had a book 1 be a downer, and then like you can have like light in like a book 2 or something. But Brandon has kind of built up a brand, and so I can understand that. Like,
and that brand is not Grimdark.
And that no.
It's not Grimdark. No.
Well, and that is the interesting thing, because I think one thing I love about Stormlight is that, like, yeah, heroes are doing heroic things, and they're swearing ideals. They have the awesome moment and being badass heroes, and not like, yeah, everything's gritty and stuff. Personally, I think having that sort of heroism cast in post-apocalyptic Roshar sounds awesome to me. Like, that sounds really cool.
And I think when we get to book 6, there's going to be a lot of, we're so back kind of feeling.
Yeah.
But it's the fact that we are looking at like a 6-year gap. That's weird.
Yeah.
Coming to you live from the break that we just had.
Yes.
The next question from Windrunner. David is his name. Meta question about Ghostbloods, like how Brandon's feeling about it, because he's been living in Stormlight world, that's for sure, for a while, and is now immersing himself back in Scadrio, back in, kind of the infamous idea that he's writing all of Ghostbloods back to back, stuff like that. And this is another one where Brandon just will not shut up.
That's
But some highlights of what he talks about. Just constantly surprising himself with not having to do setup for things or explain things, because he did pull a lot of his original Ghostbloods plans back into Wax and Wane stuff. So like the Cold War, the South, the Maoish, the Bands of Mourning, all of these things he doesn't have to explain or do much setup for in Ghostbloods. He can just deal with them because he's got this whole other series where if people were like, where is this coming from? He can go and say, well, I wrote 2,000 pages about that.
I still think he could have set up whatever went on with the Bands of Mourning better, because it does.
That is not a hot take, and we will not address it.
Mm-hmm.
Other notable things that he talks about in this wall of text. Allegedly, everyone wants him to make Ghostbloods work like an entry, work like a standalone series on its own, which I kind of get, right? Kind of the idea that
I think everyone at the publisher, just to be clear,
the publisher wants that to happen.
Just to be clear, not everyone.
The idea that, Ghostbloods Book 1 is more marketable than Mistborn Book 8, right? Even though it's not really Mistborn, it's like Mistborn is a weird series, right?
It's a weird series.
It's difficult to market that. So like there is a push for him to like re-explain things and like establish what allomancy is and establish what's fair, like in a very like 101 kind of level, which we don't want, right?
No.
He doesn't want either. So we'll see how much he can get away with. He does have like, and I'm going to read this because it's an offhanded mention that some people are reading into it and some people are not, so I'll let you be the judge of that. He says, I've been writing in this world a long time. I'm very comfortable with things, and it's more fun for me to have, for instance, a literature character doing cool things with their powers than it is for me to re-explain how allomancy works. And the reason I highlight this is because of this seemingly random literature character example. It does read like just an example, right? It's just him going, hey, for example, a coin shot character, right? Except he has said in the past that the main character of Ghostbloods is going to be a leecher, a Nicrosil Mystic, right?
Oh, that's not a
leecher.
Nigrobursts are Nicrosil.
Nigroburst. Okay.
Nicrosil chromium.
Okay, then that entire sentence is moot. I mean, it's not entirely moot. It's
just in case people forgot. It was a Nigroburst.
Has he changed the main character into a literature, or is he just using literature as
I think he means leecher, surely.
Yeah, I think he meant leecher.
If he says, let's show some mistings you haven't seen before, pulling on metals is not new. Guys, like, that's not it, Chief.
It's like, it is different from coin shot, but like it's not different enough for like what different. He's trying to get across.
It's the other side of that same coin.
He's talking a lot here, so yeah.
I wanted to highlight that. Make of that what you will. And then other notable bits in all of this is kind of from a publishing perspective. If you are interested in that, the idea that Brandon would estimate or would guess that going from Era 1 to Era 2 has cost him like half of his Mistborn readership. In other words, only half. It seems like the numbers for Wax and Wane are about half the numbers of Era 1. And so there is a fear within Tor that, going from Era 2 to Era 3 will lose him another half of that. And so obviously, and like that ties back into the idea earlier of, we want to market this as Ghostbloods Book 1 and not Mistborn Book 8.
Yeah.
Brandon is not worried about that. One, because this is the story that he wants to tell, which has always been the case with all of the books that he writes. And also because he thinks that his gut feeling is that he has lost kind of as many as he is going to lose. And there's always going to be a drop off from like one book to the next or from one series to the next. But like roughly speaking, it's not going to be another 50% drop, right? And also urban fantasy, which is like what Ghostbloods kind of is more marketable and more interesting than whatever the hell Wax and Wane
kind of
Western
detective. It's pulp.
Yeah.
Sure. But urban fantasy, higher demand than that. So he's not worried about that. We shouldn't be worried that like Ghostbloods is going anywhere or anything like that. But a little behind the scenes of what's going on there.
I definitely find that very interesting. Like losing half the readership, that's quite a lot. Era 2 is really different from Era 1. And Era 1 did have a conclusive ending. And so if you're a casual reader and you're just like, that's fun. And then maybe you just don't hear of Brandon Sanderson again. Like, that's fine. Like, pretty conclusive. I can see why you wouldn't like, Western,
I know, like, reading Alloy of Law for the first time, like, I didn't particularly love it. Because, like, I'm not a huge Westerns person.
Yeah.
I like it more now in context of, like, Shadows of Self and Bands of Mourning.
Which Brandon calls out to be some of his best Mistborn books.
I agree.
Yeah. Again, like, I do think he's mostly lost what he's going to lose. Because we've already had the big shift once.
Yeah.
We know what to expect at this point.
It's going to be genre switchy, and you just got to get used to that in Mistborn. Yeah.
And like, in ways, it is also going to be a return to form of Era 1, where it's like it's all written together. Like these are back to like door stoppers in terms of length.
One year after another.
It's gonna feel a lot more like Era 1, which maybe that will like draw more Era 1 only readers back.
Yeah, certainly from the analytics perspective, Lost Metal didn't really increase like our subscriber count very much, whereas like Rhythm of War did a lot. And so I'm interested to see how Ghostbloods will do.
Ghostbloods also has, I mean, obviously no one outside of Dragonsteel knows anything about Ghostbloods except for the name. And I think we can reasonably guess that there's going to be some Cosmere nonsense.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
So I think Era 3 has a lot going on for it that Era 2 did not.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you can only introduce guns to your fantasy series only so many times. And that's done. And if you don't like guns in your fantasy, then you've dropped off already.
Yeah.
Yep. I will say, just imagining, because Era 3 is one of the 3 trilogies that Brandon was originally talking about, right? Man, definitely just the amount of Southerner buildup that you have to do to explain things, going straight from Era 1 and imagining that as the next Mistborn book. Yeah, that feels like that would be a lot of ground to cover. So I think having Era 2 is nice.
I don't know if there's actually a way to do that well.
Yeah, I don't know.
Way it was done in Era 2 is kind of the good way to do it of first contact.
Yeah.
Rather than it's like, hey, surprise, there's actually an entire other continent of people that I didn't tell you about.
Yeah.
There were little teases. But
very little.
Yeah, I think the combination of, there is all these people, and we have a century's worth of history with them, and we are in the middle of a Cold War with them, and also there were these bands of mornings, but a single morning, not multiple mornings, that were this whole thing, like so many bricks in this wall.
Maybe Brandon was just thinking about it like, I mean, we had to deal with the backstory of Elodi and Rashek, and we made it work. So, like, I guess, but I don't know. I think this sounds like it's going well, and I'm really glad to hear that. And I don't really want too much Allomancy 101, but like, you can get things by osmosis. Like, you don't, I don't know. It'll probably be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one is another one from K-Myth. Wind and Truth ends with the postlude to the Stormlight Archive. What prelude does Stormlight 6 begin with? Brandon says that in his head he talks about it as the Voidlight Archive, even though it is technically the Warlight Archive, but he likes the Voidlight Archive more.
Because
that
it's
is
a better name.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is the better name. That is just objectively the better name.
Some people on Discord will disagree, but
I don't hate
those people are wrong.
I agree that Voidlight is better. I don't hate Warlight.
Fair.
He does say that it's not a title that will be on Book 6. Book 6 will not be Book 1 of the Voidlight Archive, but internally he's always thought of it as the Stormlight Archive and the Voidlight Archive. And he goes on to talk about how his head editor, Peter Alstrom, hates this idea. And he ends it off with, that's what I named the 2 5-book arcs in my head, because we don't have Stormlight anymore. Don't we? Are we sure we don't have Stormlight anymore? Because I don't agree with this.
Oh, yeah?
What the Inkspren who was the Oathgate's friend said. Like, there's no more Stormlight ever again.
They're wrong.
It got slurped up.
I have a whole theory against this.
Wow.
Yeah.
To be fair, I agree with you. I'm like, it can't be that easy. But
we're not getting it from High Storms, let me tell you that.
Yeah.
Look, I confirmed with Karen Elstrom that there is Stormlight in that big vat that the Iriali gave to the Honestspren at Lasting Integrity.
That's right.
And we don't really know how Retribution's whole taking all the Stormlight interacted with that, or with the Perfect Gemstones.
It's true.
Because she wouldn't answer me for that one.
I mean, that makes sense.
Well, I mean, I'll say she wouldn't answer because she doesn't know, because she knows what Brandon knows or has written.
She did say that if Brandon asked her about whether he could do it, she wouldn't say no.
I mean, yeah, it's perfectly plausible that the Perfect Gems still have Stormlight. I don't have any issue with that. Yeah, like Brandon could say it got slurped up. Like, that is also an acceptable answer. Like, both of those are reasonable.
Yeah. I do like this question.
Yeah,
because I know I was very annoyed when Brandon was like, "Oh yeah, Book 5 ends with the postlude." I'm like, but Brandon, the Stormlight the archive ends at Book 10. Like, you can't do a postlude if the Stormlight archive's not over. And yeah, like, this all makes sense now.
It's just Stormlight Archive 2 Electric Boogaloo. Book 6 is going to be the second postlude to the Stormlight Archive.
We're going to that's going to be on some of the interior pages. The chapter arches are going to be something different because they all broke in this one. It'll say Book 6, but maybe Book 6 of Stormlight Archive, Stormlight will be crossed out and it'll say Voidlight Archive on it. I don't know, in the interior, but better.
Style.
But better. I think that's awesome. Voidlight Archive sounds very cool. It gets the post-apocalyptic vibes in there. Like, I want it to feel a little different. Yeah.
It's like, I understand Voidlight Archive is not the most accurate term. And like Argent said, Warlight Archive is not bad. It's just not as good as Voidlight Archive.
Teravangian can call his investiture whatever he wants, okay?
That is true. He can.
He can just call
absolutely
it Voidlight.
rebrand.
We already have
Shards,
2 Everstorms.
Yeah. And Shards sometimes make questionable decisions about what their investiture should be called.
Will some people on this podcast be annoyed about that sometimes? Yes. That's fine.
Wow, you don't have any harmony in your life.
Szeth has bad opinions about names.
Anything else on this one, guys?
I am looking forward to see what book 6 looks like.
I do like how
Oh, yeah.
Brandon did not talk about the event. That would be the prelude. But, that's fine. That's fine. That makes sense.
He wasn't going to say
He wasn't going to say. Of
anything
course
about
not.
that.
Of course not. Yeah.
I think he has said that that the back half will similarly have like prologues that are different POVs of the same event.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you kind of have to.
We have any guesses on who the prelude and postlude character will be?
Ooh,
I'm putting my money on Kalak again.
Again?
Yeah, I could see it being Kalak again.
He's kind of a loser, though.
That's kind of the point, though.
Great.
This back 5 is about him becoming unloserify.
But I don't
He's
want
going to
him.
become Shallan's picture.
Good for him. I don't care enough about him to invest in him being the prelude, postlude character.
It's just a prelude being totally different from what the prologue event would be. Like, I honestly have no idea. It's probably going to be some crazy crap that, like, I can't even imagine.
I think Kaladin would be a fun choice. I think El would be a fun choice.
I really would like it to not be Kaladin.
But he's the main character, though.
It probably shouldn't be, though.
That's
because
kind of the problem. It's Kaladin has always been the main character, and he's being taken out of that main character spot for other people to be the main characters.
Yeah.
So if we put them back in as the main character,
you're not.
It's like, I want Kaladin to show up in the epilogue, not in the prelude.
Yeah, Taln style.
Look, for all we know, it's going to be like some Yolan prelude or something totally wild. Like, I don't know. Who's to say? I'm excited. Voidlight Archive. Hell yeah. Cool. This next one comes from the staff of the Coppermind, a.k.a. Jessie, Keepers, and maybe this group of people who've been talking about this, because we've had a lot of conversations about this.
The collective consciousness and amalgamation of flesh known as the staff of the...
Okay.
That is the 10th unmade.
Yeah.
we're the sleepless altogether.
Yeah, we're all the Slorms, yeah. In the spiritual realm visions, we meet a man by the name of Elodi. Is this modern day El, as he was in pre-fused form, or is this someone else? Brandon, Raphos, and Evgeni, what did you do after that when we did this?
Run the clip.
I'm not going to run the clip again. No, I'm not going to do it.
No. So independently of this, viewers, listeners, for context, we prepare for these interviews extensively. Like, we go and we hire a full stadium with gym, and we prep, right? Our bodies must be as sharp and as hard as our minds. And that's what I want. I want 20,000 people.
The statements of Evgeni do not reflect
the
beliefs of the 17th Shard.
I do not want Twitch plays writing a Brandon Sanderson interview. No.
So as part of this prep, we put together a big old document and like we all pitch in questions and we refine the phrasing and like the exact wording and the relative priorities of questions based on like how likely we think they are to be answered and how likely we think that like Brandon is going to like want to engage with that question, because like it's not fun to just ask half a page worth of a question about time bubbles on trains and then Brandon's like, Raffo. It's it's not fun for him, it's not fun for us, it's not fun for anyone who is consuming this worth of Brandon. And so a bunch of different factors go into all of that. And is L Elodi or is Elodi L was one of the questions on that list that was very low on that list. Like, I didn't think that question was going to get asked, let alone answered.
Oh no, I made sure it was on the list. I made sure in the prep. I just thought it'd be a thing he could answer. That wouldn't be an auto Raffo.
I was not on the meetings. Anyway, I was not on the calls.
I was.
And so I figured, hey, the interview is not going to get to it. If they get to it, Brandon's not going to answer it. I'll just ask Karen. And so I did. I was proven the fool, and the interview did ask that question, but I was not proven the fool because it was not answered. However, fortunately, because I had asked this ahead of time, Karen answered, and she did explicitly confirm with Brandon whether it is okay to publish this. Obviously, you are hearing this, you're seeing this in your canon, so the confirmation exists. And we now know that L and Elodi are separate people. The timeline of like when we see Elodi in the past just does not allow for this person to be L.
There you go. Sorry, Jess.
Makes me so sad. I was convinced it was the same person.
Elodi, he does feel very L-coded, like in the way that he interacts with Jezrien, and
it's true.
It's all the Jezrien stuff.
Yeah. And so my headcanon is that he is an ancestor. He's like a father or a grandfather of L. Mm-hmm. And so L has picked up. So like maybe L knew Jezrien through Elodi, through his father or grandfather or whatever. Yeah. But he was a child. And so like in my headcanon, child L thinks of Jezrien as his friend, or his first exposure to Jezrien was as this like friend. It's like the relationship was asymmetrical to begin with, and then over time, they grew and developed into something similar to what Elodi and Jezrien had, but it didn't start that way. That's how I justify all of that.
That must be the case, but yeah, I can see the confusion for sure because it's not really there. So yeah.
Also, we have moved to an espresso martini.
Hell yeah.
Nah. Which is better?
Which is better? I liked the chuck teas better.
There you go.
Espresso, like you cannot do a bad espresso martini, but I've had better ones than this. Final note on this: Karen is the best. We love Karen.
Karen's great.
Hard.
Love Karen.
100%. Karen does the hard work of parsing Brandon's typos in early drafts to try and figure out what's actually going on, guys. This
next question is Windrunner, summarizing this. Like, it's getting into the fact that Kaladin killed Shallan's brother, and they both know and have never talked about it. Like, is that something he's going to dig into in the future, or is that just not something he's interested in? And Brandon's like, it's on my list of things to do, but the way he writes characters is much more freeform. It's not as outlined to make them feel a bit more alive. And Shallan doesn't confront problems, and Kaladin was in the process of breaking, so it just didn't make sense to do. And so maybe someday they'll talk about it. Maybe they won't. Sometimes people don't talk about things.
Don't worry, Shallan's mom knows. Shallan mom will know before the back half.
Well, it's not her kid.
I
She was
guess
the
that's true. I
bastard.
guess that's true. That's true.
She
Why
doesn't
would she care?
She's like, good riddance.
Yeah, that's definitely a thread that you thought would be in later books, but hey, okay, maybe we'll get there sometime. I don't know.
Maybe one day.
Yeah.
I don't think that's happening. It's just it has become far too removed from being relevant or topical.
Hey.
I have seen the vision.
Okay.
Because we all know at the end of the series, Shallan, Adolin, and Kaladin are going to get their drink.
Absolutely. 100%.
And it's going to be like a fade into black, just like they talk long into the night. The last thing that's actually going to be read is like, yeah, so you killed my brother, and that's going to be how the series ends.
The end of the Stormlight Archive.
The Voidlight Archive. Good. We like that. All right. Evgeni, do this next one, which, sometimes we ask questions because it's top on our mind, even though we know Brandon's not going to answer it, and that's this one.
Well,
It's like, if you never ask, you never get the Rapho.
It's true. It's true.
That's true.
Sometimes you want to see Brandon's face as you say a thing, okay? And that is sometimes half of the fun, okay? So if you're new, we've done this a long time, like over 15 years of this game. That's how we do it.
Sometimes the Rapho is worth it for the facial expression.
Honestly, kind of is.
We do like having at least one in each interview that is like Brandon going, that's insane of you to ask me, and you know how this is gonna end, and this is the way you thought it was gonna end.
Yeah.
And this is the token mandatory raffle, right?
You have to do it.
We wanted to ask about Taln murder attempt on Cultivation. He tried to do murder with a weapon that he got from Kalak. Obviously, we were never going to get the full picture, but we thought to ask how close he got to killing her. And you can look at our previous video on the thumbnail to see Brandon's facial expression on this. And he just says, you think I'm going to answer that? No, Raffo. Wait for Taln's flashbacks.
Yeah.
We tried to get something about the Dawnshard out of that. We didn't get anything about the Dawnshard out of that.
Makes sense.
Big fat raffle.
Yeah. I'm interested to see. Sometimes he gives clues that we could theorize about, okay?
Not here.
Not here. He does say it's later, it's dangerous to give clues. And that makes sense. That's fine. So this next one, Marvin asks, so Hoid claims that Retribution's ascension was pretty unlikely to happen and basically didn't see it happening. But we see some other characters like Moloch and the Death Rattles sort of predicting it. Renarin sees it, basically. Does that mean that Hoid is just worse at seeing the future than he thinks he is? Brandon, well, yes, he's definitely worse at seeing the future than he thinks he is. But also the future is finicky. And things like that, yeah. Hoid is very good at getting where he needs to be. He's much worse at actually reading the future, and you will see this with him. There are other points where you can see this with him. He's very good at play acting, but yeah.
I like that Hoid's never trust anyone who claims they can see the future is just him being jealous.
I don't know if that's it, but that's very funny.
Yeah. Or it's like, don't trust anyone who can see the future because sometimes they're making stuff up.
He's just like, man, I'm terrible.
Lest
at
we
this.
forget, Shallan goes, including you, and he says, especially me.
Well, maybe, we shouldn't trust Hoid because he can't read it very well.
Don't trust me because I'm just full of it.
Yeah. Hey, look, Moloch and the Death Rattles, they got this on lock. Obviously, there must be Death Rattles that aren't coming true. And we're getting the important foreshadowy ones.
Yeah.
That's
Great band name, by the way. Moloch and the Death Rattles.
It's pretty good, actually. That's really good. Anyway, that's a good one because, those random, those night forms, they see this future too, except when they're prison guards. But, we'll ignore that.
That's the future that they saw for themselves.
Yeah, I guess.
They wanted to make sure they got mentioned on screen.
It's true, yeah.
And that's the only way they could do it.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Not named, though.
No, Yuri Allen and something Star.
Whatever, I don't know. Jess, this next one is written by you, actually.
Yes, this one is about the Palanaeum, but not the Palanaeum that you're thinking about. Original Palanaeum, which may or may not be the same one.
Sorry, I need to stop you. I don't think most people know what the Palanaeum is. Can you remind those? Like, I'm not even talking about the software that powers Arcanum. No one knows that.
About to make that joke.
Which book Palanaeum you're talking about?
The Palanaeum is the library that Shallan and Yasna use in Kharbranth.
Oh, the one where Yasna takes a bath.
No, that's the Conclave. That's where they're living. The Palanaeum is like part of the Conclave, but it's not like the same thing. I can keep going into further detail if you would like.
This is because the
author. Technically, the Palanaeum is split into two different sections.
Because there's also the Veil, right?
The Veil is the start of the Palanaeum, and then there's the Palanaeum proper.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Which has a perfect gemstone at the bottom of it.
Just wrote the Palanaeum article on the Coppermine, guys. It's very good. So check it out.
So why are we talking about the Palanaeum now?
So there was a firing of the original Palanaeum. Whether that means it was lit on fire or something else is not entirely clear. But there was wonderings of whether this was related to the hierocracy and Vararism's desire to get rid of historical records of the Knights Radiant and Voidbringers, or if it was related to something else. Bradley goes Raffo and gives a really funny facial expression, and personally, I think he just doesn't remember anything about this because
100%. Yeah, like 100%. This was like a tiny little offhand reference, like a little burning of the Library of Alexandria thing. And he may have written an explanation. He doesn't.
It is.
I doubt he remembers the original
sentence of an epigraph in The Way of Kings.
It's really top on his mind, I'm sure, after the truth. Look, sometimes we ask questions because Jess was one of the potential cast members, and so Jess got some questions in here because we have a whole system here, guys.
I'm sure this will be as relevant as the lesson was in.
It's coming back, guys. It's coming back.
The Book 10 flashback callback to this line is going to
be Yasna
shaking.
In a bath in the Conclave. We're going to get there.
In the actual, not in the baths of Kharbranth, in the actual library is where she's going to be taking a bath.
Yes. Anyway, good question. I totally forgot about this, Jess, so I love that.
I imagine so did all the other readers as well.
Well, sometimes they're personal things.
We're the ones making this interview happen. We get to ask the questions we want to ask.
That's right.
Exactly. This is our interview.
And do you want to do your next one, Jess?
Yes, so someone awesome and brilliant and great got to ask a second question immediately next. And by ask, I mean Kameth. Kameth got to ask it, but it was my question. So this one is another Winded Truth one, and it's from one of Szeth's flashbacks, where he's praying to a stone that gives him the impression that it is foreign to Roshar. And I am going to actually read the actual quotes because I think they're very relevant. The first one's from Winded Truth, and it is, brilliant stone 2 feet across with a crystal vein running through the center. It opened at one side like a mouth, the crystal forming teeth. The second is from The Final Empire. At the direct middle of the circular pattern, the crystals curved inwards, following a pocket-like hollow in the wall. Here, the crystals grew long, each one having a jagged, sharp edge, like teeth lining the maws of a stone beast. Is Szeth praying to an atium crystal? Another very great facial expression from Brandon and another Raffo, but that facial expression was so worth it.
This one did feel less, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I agree.
And more, there might be, I'm not going to bet a lot of money on the atium crystal idea. Because you can, there are only so many ways you can describe. Like there's a very specific type of geode that has like crystals lining an opening, and like it looks like a maw a little bit. And so, if he is describing a similar like structure in both books, there are only so many ways that he can describe that. Right? It can be a perfectly normal coincidence.
Mm-hmm. I'm inclined to believe this is a coincidence. And Brennan was like, oh, that's neat. And didn't want to like let on. Like sometimes Brandon Raffos because he likes the conversations that are happening. I think the calculus that was in his brain is like, that's not a thing, but that sounds really cool. I'm not going to put the kibosh on this.
But sometimes it's, you're noticing
But what if
something.
Shallan was by? Yeah,
it's possible. I don't know how, but it is suspicious.
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
enough.
16 is in the neighborhood, right? We know 16 is Scadrian. There are ways to get an atium geode, or not geode, but
Yeah. I think also Jess, Brandon apologized to you because it said it was a Jess question, and so he was like,
Yeah.
You got ruffled.
Was this the apology one?
I don't think it's in the transcript, but I think it's this one because you had a third one a bit later, and that was when he gave you something. So
yeah, he gave me an actual answer later.
Yeah,
which was nice.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the secret. Just ask a lot of questions, and eventually Brandon feels bad about answering or not answering.
I don't think he feels bad about your questions.
Yeah, like he's not going to feel bad about you.
Sorry.
I'm being abused.
I mean,
yes, you are.
Sorry. Cool. Let's go to this next one, Ian.
Okay. This one is Paleo asked, did any god metals exist prior to the shattering, like either associated with Adonalsium or one that would become associated with a shard or something else like that? Which Brandon, he raffos it because of course he's going to raffo it. But he can talk about why. He does have a god metal planned for Adonalsium, but he doesn't know if it will actually make it to the canon version of the Cosmere. There's a lot of stuff about Yolen that is still up in the air. Like some things have made it to canon. Bane Life is explicitly canon at this point. That was like lived in uncanonical space for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's going to wait until he writes actual Dragonsteel. And he like alludes to some things that are in Dragonsteel Prime's chronology. But if it is relevant, like once we get Dragonsteel, like it will become relevant very quickly. So it's there, but like it's tacked on loosely. I find this very interesting because that means Dragonsteel is not Adonalsium's god metal.
True.
Which was a theory. So he gave us more than he thought he did.
Yeah. You got to search the Raffo Plus tag on Arcanum where Brandon raffos and then just talks for a while. Those are good.
Don't go to the Raffo explanation tag because that's something different.
Yeah.
I think there is one Raffo Plus that he raffles a thing and then proceeds to just answer the question.
Yes. Yes, that happens more than a little bit. Yes. Yeah. I would have thought that it's plenty plausible that Dragonsteel, the metal, not the company or the con,
Well,
the book.
Khan's not Dragonsteel anymore.
Yeah.
Now we have a
Is-
Nexus disambiguation.
Oh God, don't get me started. Was the Adonalsium's god metal? So that's interesting. So we got fact. Cool. Evgeni?
Next question. Once again, coming to you live from Windrunner.
Yes.
Braize's core has an interesting metal. Would you consider this metal to be a god metal or no?
Oh, I love this answer.
Brandon says, no, I would not consider it to be a god metal. David says, you would not? Okay. And that would have been something that would have been set up when Adonalsium created the system. And Brandon says, this was not placed there by any of the shards of Adonalsium. Okay. Would I call it a god metal? This is where we get into it, right? Like, what do we consider a god metal?
He said the thing. He said the
He
thing.
almost said the thing. It's not a god metal of one of the 16 shards. There you go. Well, that's an excellent hint, says David. I would not consider it a god metal of one of the 16 shards. It was not placed there, but by one of the 16 shards. David says, we love to do what is here. So if you want to answer what is a god metal, we'd be happy to run through it. And Brandon says, it depends. Like right now, what is a god metal? Right now, I call the god metals the essences of the 16. But god metals term kind of developed naturally in the community. That is false.
That is absolutely false.
It is in the Ars Arcanum of Era 1.
No, of
Era 2.
Era 2. It
Is
was
it Era
in
2?
Alloy. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why we get it capitalized. That's where it first was.
Yep. And I hate the fact that it's two words and that it's capitalized and that it's
I
not
hate it
shard
too,
metal.
but that's what it is.
So, it's not community driven because we hate it. Anyway, kind of developed naturally in the community. It's not really a thing that the early in-world characters could even really define. And so there's something really wonky about the moon and the bits of it that hit the planet. So, there is maybe some myths and stories on Roshar that you might have heard that have something to do with this. And some of those, all of those stories mean something. So there you are.
It's got to be Queen Saw, obviously.
Yeah. It was a spaceship that brought the Sia Amians to Roshar. And then they interbred with the Natan people.
And the moon
crashed.
crashed.
That's not weird.
Sure.
That does not work.
Especially when the moon collapsed there and Honor didn't know it was there. Okay.
Yeah. That doesn't work.
Where the humans, yeah, okay.
Okay. They were in stasis chambers and survived the crash landing and didn't leave until humans arrived.
I still want Sa to have slept with the Spren of the Moon.
With the what?
The Spren of the Moon.
Yeah,
No.
I wanted Bodemishram to be like the Spren of Roshar, and we kind of, I don't know, maybe we'll explore some of that. But, the moon could have a Spren. That's fine.
I mean, if Star Spren are a thing, I see,
There's
I
a
don't see a
bead that
reason
has
why-
the moon in it, okay, in Shadespar. There's a bead.
I have to believe there is at least a moon Spren, if not a Spren for each individual moon.
Yes. I don't think that Spren was having sexual intercourse with a human woman or led to the creation of a human subspecies with blue skin.
Well,
Meanwhile, Brandon, 5 years from now, someone will ask about this, and they'll be like, go to the 17 Shard. They'll know about that.
Yeah.
And, it's perfectly clear. The 17 Shard know all about it. He does that a lot. When we do not know about it, by the way, at all. He just assumes we did.
But no, so what is a god metal, right? That's the I think the important takeaway here. Yeah, there's some moon talk here. But what is important to me is that god metals are the essences of the 16, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of by definition, if you don't have the 16 shards, you cannot have, atium and lerasium and whatever. I don't know why I was extremely hung up on coming up with a name for Honor's god metal. But yeah, so those don't exist by definition. You may or may not have Adonalsium,
yes.
as established by the previous WoB, that may or may not exist. But anything like more fine-grained than that is not an option. I think you can still have solid investiture that is like adjacent to a god metal, right? And maybe
like
that, maybe.
Do you think Dragonsteel is an actual metal? Or do you think it's
an actual metal? Yes, I think it's an actual metal.
Well, yeah, but like it's
what is the metal?
It's a magic metal. Like it's investiture.
Yeah.
There is a.
I don't know. We can talk about this for a lot, actually. What are the molecules and the atoms in the Dragonsteel? How does the investiture interact with it?
Dragonsteel is under the category of magic metals in the Cosmere, along with presumably there is a metal aether, which I got a signed Tress, and I asked for a hint about one of the 6 aethers we don't know about, and I mistakenly said the words out loud to Brandon, like there's probably a metal aether, and that's just what he wrote.
Also, pro tip: you just got to leave it open ended for Brandon to potentially blab. Like you just have to do that.
Yeah.
Let's put a pin on the whole Dragonsteel metal thing.
Yes.
Because that's a can of worms, baby.
It is a can of worms.
Something that I find interesting with this question, and I think it's actually Brandon just misinterpreting what David's saying because of how he completes the rest of the question. But when David's asking of whether Braize would have been set up when Adonalsium created the system, but then Brandon starts talking about the shards of Adonalsium, which would have been after the system was created.
It's definitely a non-answer, for sure.
Yeah. It's definitely a sidestep of the actual question.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do wonder if there is room here for a middle ground where Adonalsium may have set up because like now that we've seen Wind and Truth, we know, Honor talks about the Greater Roshar being one of Adonalsium's later creations, right?
Mm.
There is room here between Adonalsium setting up the system and someone or something else coming up and interfering with that. There is the opportunity for that to have happened. That prompts Brandon to be cagey about not explicitly confirming that Adonalsium. So like there is Adonalsium set up the system, the shards set up the system. There is a middle ground that he is leaving the door open for.
Because like we do know the core, or are they the core aethers or the prime aethers? I don't remember.
I do not remember.
But like we do know they pre-existed the shattering of Adonalsium.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And like they consider themselves equal to Adonalsium in some way. That's debatable. Like they consider themselves like completely separate. Whether or not that's true, we don't know. There were other powerful magical entities in the Cosmere. Don't really know much about what the aethers are, like these core aethers are or do. Could they have shown up? Maybe. They may. We don't know. Aether moons are a thing in the Cosmere.
Well, the moons are normal. They just have aethers on them.
Look, fourth moon could have an aether on it. Okay, that's a fact. And by fact, I mean it's not a fact at all.
A possibility.
It's a logically valid possibility. And also, a bit later, legally we were required to ask about the fourth moon, and we asked, like, are you just going to auto-rafo? And Brandon's like, yeah, basically. So, hey, there you go.
It is in our contract with Dragonsteel Entertainment, actually.
Yeah, that's the contract we'll write. So this next one, Rosemary asks, you've said many times that Sel's one of the most difficult planets to get to in the Cosmere, and yet there are a whole lot of Selish world hoppers running around. Is the planet just easier to leave than it is to get to, or is there something else going on? Brandon says, so there's a specific way that you can get on and off, and if you know the people who run that, you can get on and off. If you're going to try and do it on your own, you're going to get destroyed, almost certainly. Not completely certainly. So difficulty inspires people to make solutions. How about that? You can't just wander over to Sel and get on the Sel very easily. But if you know how, like, it's a lot easier for me to get to California than to New York, but I go to New York more often. It's like that. Yeah.
I don't understand that comment.
I think it just means like, well, now we have planes, so it's easy to get to New York. And so there is a method to get there. And so it's like, in this case, like you ask the right person. And so in this case, it's like, I go to the airport and I can very easily get to New York. Whereas like, if I did not have that, it is physically easier for me to go to California and drive there.
Because it's closer?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's in Utah. Anyway, this must be the Weiry, right? The Weiry must have a method to do this, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Surely.
Yeah.
And you talk with them and they'll hook you up.
Yeah. I think it's got to be some variation of, hey, if you just hop through the perpendicularity, or if you just show up in this subastral, high chance you get evaporated by the door plasma.
It's the raging plasma storm that is the door.
Yeah.
But like, the Weiry must have like fortresses outside that subastral or something.
Or tunnels or teleporters or, some reliable way of getting through.
Sure. They do have teleportation aeons, so,
Or shields.
We know that Investiture responds to music. They just have a series of boomboxes that calms the storm in a tunnel.
That's at Taldane. Everyone knows that.
You just have to traverse the doorway, the door rave.
The doorway. Oh, that's really good, actually. I might put that in the description. I like that. Good to know. I like that.
Yep.
Cool.
Hey, Elantris sequel's coming to the bookstore near you in the next half a decade?
We could do an Elantris reread episode.
Ooh.
We do need to do span reads.
We never did span reads Elantris. Yeah. But like we could do like a Shardcast of like what we like expect from Elantris sequels, which would require us to reread the book. We should probably do that.
Okay, so the next question is another one from Windrunner, and it's talking about in Sunlit Man, we learned that spikes can be made from previous holders of Dawnshards and then used to find the next Dawnshard holder in the chain. And we've always kind of figured that that's how the Night Brigade were tracking Sigzor. But we now see that he has the Dawn Shard from Hoid, and we know that Hoid was most likely not killed and had a spike made out of him. So are there other different methods to follow him being Sigzor, I assume? Brandon, you don't have to kill people to make spikes anymore. By that era, making spikes is a very different experience. Brandon talks about if you could get some of Hoid's breath, you could make a spike. And there are other ways to chase the Dawn Shard as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, I do find this interesting. That's not how it's presented in Sunlit Man, the book.
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
And like that was after Lost Metal, where it's like you don't have to kill people to make spikes anymore. So
Yeah. I think Sunlit Man is kind of very explicit about Sigil going, hey, if they catch you, they will turn you into a spike or something like that. Like there's no room for, they will siphon a little bit of your investiture and turn that. No, they're like, they will turn me, whatever it was.
Yeah. And it's like, obviously, like Sigil doesn't want to help these people like get, like find the Dawnshard. Like he doesn't want to give them the next piece. He's actively running for his life. He's not running away for like if like he thought he was gonna survive the process, I don't think he would be running and hiding as hard. Like it would be bad, but it's like he'd still be alive.
I agree. I will present the fact that he turned himself in, or he had turned himself in to the Night Brigade at first. And so I don't remember Sunlit Man well enough, but I think there is room there for he didn't just escape. They got something out of him.
I don't know what you're talking about. Unfortunately, it's been a while since I read Sunlit Man.
Like there was a thing where he speaks with Ox, and it's like, at first I thought I was just gonna like show up to them and like I will tell them what I need to tell them or whatever, and I'll walk out. And they're like, oh nope, they captured me.
Okay. So like, why didn't they just steal part of his soul and make a spike?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe that's what happened.
But like, they're still chasing him. Like, if they made the spike, they wouldn't need him anymore.
Right. Like, so yes, I understand that. Maybe what they got was not enough, right? Maybe he turned himself in. They were like, oh, this Christmas present just walked into I'm mixing metaphors, but this guy just walked up here all on his own. Oh, we're gonna use him to find the Dawnshard. They do something, he escapes, and they're like, oh, we got enough out of him to be able to find him again, but not enough, not as much as we wanted to to find the next link in the chain. So like, we can chase him again and get what we were hoping to get. Something like that.
I guess this is unclear. It's weird given the writing of Sunlit Man that it could just be clearer. So I'm confused. But
It is also unclear.
It kind of sounds like Brandon came up with an idea for Sunlit Man and then came up with this idea after Sunlit Man.
Yeah, a little bit maybe. I do think it's interesting to point out, like, obviously post Lost Metal, we know that spikes can be made in a non-lethal way. It is, but like, we've never seen the end result of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it is interesting to see Brandon go, making spikes is a different experience. Because I would be curious to see what Hemorrhagy looks like in Ghostbloods or in Era 4 or in Era 5, right?
Yeah.
And definitely if it's taking something else that's not, like, it's not taking part of someone's soul necessarily, if it can take part of Hoid's breath instead.
And that's kind of soul adjacent, right?
Because technically your breath, like, the breath that is born as part of Adonalsium is part of their soul. So it's just like, it's a lot of stuff grafted onto your soul, technically.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of people who aren't born with breath who then get breath. Like, is that now part of their soul, or is that just investiture that they now have?
To quote Brandon, it's loosely tacked on to their soul.
It's stapled on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's more their soul than like Stormlight is, but less than the spiritual gene for allomancy, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Would love more clarity on the Dawnshards stuff, but okay.
Yep.
Yep. We'll get there eventually, probably.
So the next one was my last question that Brandon actually answered this time.
Yay.
And it's about Kalak's comments to Shallan being able to draw on fortune because she has 2 Nahel bonds. And I was interested of whether that's truly what's going on or whether it's instead because she's the daughter of a herald, or is it a mixture of both? Brandon said it's definitely some mixture going on there and some unique resonances going on with Shallan. I would say anyone who is trying to theorize in world about what is going on with Shallan, they don't like. It's a pretty unique case and they are spitballing maybe poorly, whether it's Hoid or anyone else. Weird stuff is going on with Shallan's spirit web and it is causing all sorts of fun for me.
That checks out.
So that's him going, hey, don't try to figure Shallan out. She's gonna be like there is enough mess in her soul that I can do whatever I want with her.
If you try and do a Shardcast prediction episode on Shallan's ability, you will not get it.
She is a child of, 2 people, which you inherit some from both people, but then one of the people is a herald, and not only is she a herald, she's got like weird stuff going on because of Oath Pact and stuff, and also like people's perception of her. And also Shallan has like 2 radiant bonds, and one of those bonds has gone dead, but then it's not really dead, it's gotta come back to life because the other bond is interacting. So like Shallan's soul is like a soup.
And Brandon can literally make it do whatever he wants it to. So There you go. Hey.
I wonder how much of that is going to be passed on to this
To Yu-Gi-Oh!
child that
His name's Yugi.
His name is Yugi. Yes, I realized that as yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's really interesting, Jess.
we have a name. We actually have a name.
No, we're
now?
making a joke that he'll have Yugi Moto hair and red, black, and blonde.
Like,
That's all. That's
yeah.
it. No. No, that's really
maybe
interesting.
if we gaslight Brandon into
Yeah.
Hey,
Towers
Brandon,
becomes
you
really big in the back half.
Last year in the Shardcast interview, you confirmed that Shallan's child name was going to be Yugi Moto.
Yeah. I'll send an email. I think that probably whatever like spiritual thing that Chana passed on to Shallan probably would be passed on. That's what I would assume in some respect.
To an extent.
Yeah.
Spiritual stuff works however
Brandon
spiritual stuff wants to work.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of feels a little bit like allomancy genes that just get less dominant throughout the generations.
Yeah.
Yep.
That seems sensible.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right.
So this next one is Paleo. Basically saying like, hey, we learned a lot about the history of Roshar, this book. What's the 0 year for the foreign calendar? Because that's a question we've had since book 1. And Brendan Raffo's in because he doesn't remember.
Nice.
And like he has like a little anecdote about like the 20th anniversary of Elantris. Like they did trivia. And he was on his own team because if he was on anybody else's team, that's cheating. And like running into things where it's like the thing that's in his brain is what it was originally and not the thing he changed it to during revision. Like Adain was originally called Mabin, and so he's still Mabin in his brain. There's a shout out to Silver Eyes. But yeah.
Yep.
For the benefit of people who are not as deep into the lore of this fandom,
Yes.
Tin used to not be an elementic metal. The metal that granted improved like senses was silver originally, and so people who were silver mistings were known as silver eyes.
Which sounds way cooler than Tin Eye, which I think Brandon liked.
Unfortunately, Brandon thought pewter was a silver alloy, and it's not.
Unfortunately,
You can have silver in pewter, but it's not definitionally required.
Brandon was less willing to do whatever the hell he wants early in his career.
Hey, I know all of my metallurgy from the Mistborn series, good sir.
Do you know what Wood's metal is?
Or wasn't it like Wood's alloy? Yeah, but like it's a spendaloy.
Yeah.
And then I learned that Nicrosil is... was it Nicrosil that was nickel, chromium, and silicon?
Yeah. I remember the
Nicrosil.
I remember the Elementic chart where Bendaloy was called Sarabend, but that's a copyrighted one, so I had to use a different name. That's a deep cut from 2009. I think
That is an extremely deep cut, I think.
Nice. Evgeni, talk to us about Cusicesh.
I love talking about Cusicesh.
We all love Cusicesh.
Giant amalgamation of faces. Buddy.
He's my favorite giant amalgamation of faces.
Yes, it is a small category, but not an empty one.
It's not.
Sure. David asks or says that one of his favorite moments in Stormlight 5 was the interlude with Cusicesh, where we see the Iriali leave, which was kind of a cool tieback to the Way of Kings. But one of the things that we were curious about was Cusicesh. It seems like he's serving as a guide to wherever the Iriali are going next. Maybe Lamar, maybe somewhere else. Is he the guide for just this leg of the journey? Or was he with them when they came to Roshar and he's kind of leading them to the next land? And Brent says, so he is the guide for this leg of the journey, but he's not actually a Spren. David asks, not actually a Spren. Okay, I guess Axes gets some things wrong sometimes. That is Axes the Collector. And Brandon says, Axes would have to categorize him correctly as a Spren adjacent entity, which is how he's categorized Scions when he has met them.
I guess my theory's wrong, guys. Cusicesh doesn't get an extra limb every land.
Right, that was it was the Yar's theory, yes.
Yeah.
So 3 things of note here, right? One of them, Cusicesh is the Iriali guide just for Roshar to the 5th land, presumably the 5th land. 2, Cusicesh, not actually a Spren adjacent entity, much like Scions. I don't necessarily know what the distinction is, other than Spren are Roshar natives and Scions are not.
Yeah, it's like Roshar native made of the investiture of the shards invested in Roshar.
Yeah. But it's, a
transformative cognitive entity is
that's unfortunately the correct way to categorize
whatever Vasher called it. Whatever.
And 3, Axes has met Scions, which is not shocking considering that we've seen a few of those around, but it's good to know that he has seen some of them.
I want an Iriali focused book.
They have to be important later. Like there's clearly something going on with the lands and things, and there's something going on.
Like it's interesting to have them keep popping up everywhere. Like I want the story of them from their POV. I want an Iriali perspective book.
That would be
It
good.
doesn't have to get into the everything. It doesn't have to be about the Iriali. I just want something focused like from their perspective at some point.
Like an interlude?
No, like I want a book.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to know how the mechanics of how Cusicesh formed and how like there's guides for each leg of the journey. What is going on magically, mechanically with any of this? I don't know. We have no answers, but I want answers at some point. Because it's weird.
It is. I mean, even with this, Cusicesh is weird, right?
It's super weird.
Mhm.
And he's just like, it's time to go. Like, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Because like he goes, super spraying.
And like he was able to open Honor's perpendicularity, not only in Cassator, but like in every major Iriali city at the same time.
There's a lot of weird stuff going on with the Iriali that like we have to get Iriali information. There's something going on.
Like,
and they are
I want to like know what like all of the other cities like were doing, because like Cassator obviously like has Cusicesh himself to explain things. But like there's a lot of like it's a not insignificant country. It's just like does like a random portal just appear and like a voice from the sky tells the reality to go through it.
Yeah,
I have to assume people hear disembodied voices in Stormlight all of the time.
And the Iriali are like, I'm trusting that one. What could go wrong? The magical portal just appeared. We got to go. And to be fair, if you're an Iriali and you're like, I don't know about this magical portal, if you were one of the people who stayed, sucks to be you.
Tough, man. Should have picked door number 2.
That disembodied voice you should have gone with that time. Cool.
It is so fascinating because they're clearly like a Cosmere thing.
Yeah. It's clearly important. There's clearly some mechanism to give these guides and like how that's happening. I don't know. It's probably like this is some Adonalsium design or some crap that is hard-coded into some garbage. And I don't know.
That.
And like maybe the Iriali are going to be the people who like help rebuild Adonalsium or some crap. And so it's Adonalsium doing the long game. I don't know. Who knows?
There are too many questions surrounding them, and I would love some satisfactory answers to that. I don't think we are at the point where that's impossible, right? I think we are still like looking at a few puzzle pieces very far away. We don't know how they fit or even if they fit, but it's too early to say they don't fit.
Agreed. We'll get something eventually, but it'll be a long time.
So, next question, another one from Kamith. This one's a fun one. The dragon that Hoid dated and the vessel that Hoid dated are the same person. Brandon, yes. So it's Valor. It's Valor. But that's a spoiler. I give you guys spoilers. So there's your big spoiler. That was one of the things that we were pretty sure, and Brandon says, yeah, it's the same. So we
now also funny.
Hoid dated.
Yeah.
It is funny to hear Brandon say, it's Valor.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was pretty clear in the book, personally. That they clearly have a relationship. Whatever that relationship meant, but I'm like, this makes perfect sense.
Yeah, but like the vibe in Rhythm of War was so like X's.
Yeah,
like messy breakup X's.
Yeah.
That's like, of course.
Aren't you gonna talk about shouldn't you talk to Valor? She's reasonable. Mm-hmm. Just is interesting how long Brandon's had this in his mind, because Brandon was also like, yeah, there's only one dragon vessel. So I'm like, I don't know how much this evolves in his mind, but maybe he changed it by Rhythm Before Time, with Valor.
Dragons are, in a way, they're half human. I mean, calling them half humans is incorrect, but like their human side is just as valid as their dragon side.
Oh,
They're
boo.
both their dragon side.
They're both dragons.
Yes, you know what I mean, but also yes.
I'm just
and
saying, it's cool that we have another dragon vessel,
Yes.
Ian.
Yes.
Yes,
Now we
because
just
only
gotta bring
having
it
one
down
was a
to-
bad decision.
And now we get the great dragon god.
Medalantorius,
Yes. Very cool.
who is my other waifu.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. And that's kind of the end of our regular questions.
Hard hitting.
Yeah. So last up, we also wanted to give back to the community because Brand hasn't done a spoiler stream in a really long time. He hasn't really done streams in a really long time. Like, we had monthly streams for a while, but then that has not happened. So
Stormlight will do that to you.
yeah. And so Marvin asked just, hey, when our streams are in specifically spoiler streams? Brand says, yeah, they're still in the cards. It's just been a busy patch. When I have my class, it's hard to find the time, and then holidays and things like that. We'll still probably do one. Maybe we've done one in June or July. They're one of the hardest.
June.
Not June. Let me tell you. They're one of the hardest things I do. It's like doing complex mental calculations live on stream, knowing that if I give the wrong answer, I could be hating life for years and as I try to correct the mistake. So they're very difficult. They're not one of the things I look forward to the most, but I do know people really like them. And it's one of the few times people get to do that because I do signings so infrequently now. So I do want to make it happen. It's one of those things, you want to do, but there's other things you want to do instead. And I think that makes perfect sense. But yeah, since COVID, like, Brandon hasn't really been doing signings like at all. So
I don't think him getting stuff wrong is as big a deal as he's portraying it here, because like he gets stuff wrong
all the time, and
not
maybe you
all
have
the time, but like it's happened.
But
and it's like not earth shattering.
Sometimes we just have Winded Truth that just says no to many WoBs, and we're just like, yeah, okay, that's fine.
I would say, dear listener, if Brandon does a spoiler stream and you are asking questions about the spoiler stream, consider tailoring your questions in such a way so that they feel like a fun question for Brandon to answer and not something that he has to do mental calculus about.
So
right?
when a Luntrian got an AVR and then went and got a breath.
Yeah, so
yeah.
less of that and more, hey, you came up with this really cool City of Lightning on Roshar. Can you tell us more about why the city is of lightning?
Then I'll say Raffo because I don't remember.
Well, he'll just say go to the RPG book.
Yeah.
This was an example, dear listener.
Yeah. Cool. Wow. We got there, guys. I am pleased that our raw recording hasn't gone over 3 hours. So this is the most efficient WoB thing that we've done in a very long time, actually.
And that's with reading
The entire
10-minute
thing.
question.
Yeah.
Well, you did threaten my entire family with bodily harm, so that helped.
Yeah, I just want you to keep it snappy and do less bits, Evgeni. It's fine.
No, the children yearn for the bits.
No, they absolutely don't. So I guess we'll get on over to Who's That Cosmere character?
This character is from Roshar.
Menace, Tien, Taln,
Braize.
Hoid in drag on a horse.
It's time for Who's That Cosmere character? Caw. Welcome to Who's That Cosmere Character, the game show where you send 5 clues in a character to WTCC@17shard.com. I read each clue aloud, and after each clue, these guys have a chance to guess who's that Cosmere character. And because I have not done this for a while, I gotta do Who's That Cosmere Character priority queues, so the email will not be read this day. We gotta get through our Herald priority queue, which you can do if you are on our Patreon. So go check that out. Wow. So hopefully Evelyn won't mind. She's cool. We love Evelyn.
Evelyn Bashir.
Basham.
Basham.
Yeah. So this one's by Evelyn Basham. Hey. And clue 1. This character is female.
Rabonial Lady of Wishes.
It is not Rabonial.
Ha, you sucker. Maybe it was Lady of Pains. And you guessed wrong.
Do you want to guess Rabonial's grandmother?
Never. I will never touch Rabonial's family ever again. Evelyn would certainly submit Evie.
It is not Evie.
Well, you and Evelyn are both wrong.
Okay.
Vivenna.
It's not Vivenna. Clue 2. She is invested.
Sylphna.
It is not Syl.
How weird can I go with this?
Sean Alario.
Ooh, it's not Sean. I like that, though.
I would not consider Metalborn to be invested.
Disagree. I
They
think
are-
they
Yeah,
absolutely
they are emotionally invested.
absolutely counts.
Okay. Well, I will not be debated by your false guesses.
Okay.
And I will go with Blushweaver.
It is not Blushweaver. Clue 3. She has traveled a lot on her world.
Chris.
It's not Chris.
Mm.
Definitely counts.
She
Shallan.
invested?
It is not Shallan.
Oh, yes, Starmucks, yeah.
I like Shallan because she hunted Yasna for a long time, apparently.
So it's just like me, for real, for real. Traveled a lot on her world.
Hmm?
Implies she has a world.
Yes.
Shashara.
It is not Shashara. I like that too. Clue 4, though. She survives off what her relatives left behind.
Cheery, cheery.
It's not Cherry Cherry.
Wow. Okay.
I thought this one should be cheery, cheery.
Mm.
Well, we've already established that both Eric and Evelyn are wrong about who this character
Exactly.
is. So
No, this one's good. I like this one.
Oh. Is it Risen?
It's not Risen.
that's tricky, isn't it?
It is.
Survives of what her relatives left behind,
Mm-hmm.
which feels investigatory. The wind.
It's not the wind. I like that. Though, given that this last clue is kind of funny, clue 5 is she has worked with a member of Bridge 4. So that just makes me laugh, obviously.
Well, I mean, fortunately, we've established that you are all wrong.
No. This one's a really good one. This one's a really good one. I like this. You're wrong, actually.
Impossible. Oh, it's what's her face?
I don't know. What is her face?
Not Rebecca, her sister.
It is not Elodi.
Oh.
Okay.
Is it Rebecca?
It is Rebecca. Oh. Thanks for this never gets old. It's very funny to me. For context, Ian, in the Sigzil episode.
I heard the story.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so good job, Ian. It is Rebecca. However you pronounce that, I have no idea. So there you go.
Like,
I usually say
fuck
Rebecca.
me.
Yep. This next one is from Coolio Colophon.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait, from Coolio?
Yeah, Coolio's the Herald on Patreon. He spends just $10 a month, gets all of our secret content, along with all the rich Saudi princes.
Yes.
Yes. Clue 1. This character is invested. Really starting strong here.
The Cinder King.
It is the Cinder King.
Amazing.
There you go. You got one. I thought it would be good to do 2 sunlit ones because they were there, and then I thought you'd go somewhere totally different. But you're just like, yeah, all right, cool, all right, great. That's less editing I have to do.
Good talk. Follow us on Blue Sky.
No.
What were the other clues?
That's what I'm getting to. This character is Metascadrian. This character is Meta Rosharan. This character is not seen on their home planet. I don't know if I count that. I would say
That's factually not true.
Yeah.
That is untrue. She does drop on the planet.
Yeah. And then this character is a king. Fun. Nice.
Well, unfortunately, this broken clock is right sometimes, and sometimes his time is stolen by other people.
Very good, Argent. I'm glad you got something. Congrats. Good work. All right. You can find us on 17shard.com for all your news, discussion, theories, and fun that you could ever want. We're on some social medias. Check us out on Blue Sky. You know, you can hit subscribe on YouTube, and you could give a super thanks as well on YouTube. That's a thing
We should probably do a bigger effort to promote our Discord, considering that's where like the majority of the community is.
We have a Discord server. The link's in the description, of course. And we also have a Patreon. Patreon.com/17shard. For as little as $1 a month, you can vote on art polls and stuff. And so it's pretty cool.
You can also support other websites in the 17 Shard conglomerate, such as The Coppermind or Arcanum.
Arcanum, where these words of Brandon are. That has over how many entries now? We're at over 16,000 WoBs. Mm-hmm. Amazing.
We're shooting for 17.
Yeah.
It's the next milestone.
Well, you know, it's been a decreasing function over time, obviously, but hey. And yeah, we will see you all next time for presumably Emberdark reactions. So that's pretty cool. New book. So go read that before next time. So there you go.
That's your homework.
That's your homework, yes. So we'll see you all next time.
Ta-ta.
Bye.
Bye.
Call.